Why is it taking me this long to download the Moment Pro Camera app? I don't know.
What?
But better late than never, because this app rocks. So if you're a little curious about what's in it, a little peek before you buy it, or you just like these kinds of videos, stick around. Yes, the Moment Pro Camera app is up there with the best apps in the industry, like Filmic Pro, but at a fraction of the cost. But before we get into prices, let's take a look inside. So when we get into our Moment app, this is what it looks like initially. At the bottom, of course, we have our camera roll. You're already aware of that, I'm sure. And in the very center, we have our shutter button, our record button. But what we want to do first is take a look at our four main options. Now at the very top right, we have this camera icon. If I click on that, we have four options here. We have photo, video, slow shutter, and time lapse. Now we're going to focus on video. So the top one is photo, the next one is video. Clearly, slow shutter is more for photos, and time lapse is for video. So we're going to focus on these two here, video and time lapse. Let's go ahead and click on video. And this is what it's going to look like before you film. But before you film anything, you want to get your settings straight. So let's click on this icon right here. This is your settings. And you have a lot of options here. It's pretty nifty. So at the top, we have help and support. You can go through that on your own. It's pretty common sense. Then as we scroll down, we've got our general settings. Now, a lot of this is up to you, but I like to have my location on. This is more for photos. Next, your grid lines. These are for photos and video, and I really recommend them. Now, you can keep them off if you want. You can use square, your thirds, rule of thirds, or the golden ratio. Most people go for thirds, so I'm going to go click on that here. And we'll see that when we return to the camera, I'm going to get it done. And we have these lines up and across the screen. Fantastic. Let's go back to our settings here. So our grid lines are on. Now, if we want, we could add a shortcut to Siri. I'm not into Siri, but that's your choice. However, I do have an Osmo gimbal, love it, and I would use this function here. I'll set that up later. Now, here we have our app icon. This is kind of interesting. When you click on here, it's checked the blue hour icon. This will come as default for your application for the Moment Pro Camera app. However, you have four more options. I particularly like the Moment Classic, so I'm going to click on that, click OK, and now that's going to be my icon when I'm looking for this particular app. Let's scroll back. Now, our volume shutter button, you can on or off. I keep it on. Disable all announcements. You know what? I have not gotten any announcements, so I'm assuming if there are announcements, they might be a little important. So I'm going to keep that off. I'm not going to disable it. Next, we come to exposure and focus. If you're not familiar with focus peaking, histograms, and clipping, I've got a good video for you to watch. Check it out. Link is in the description. I like to see focus peaking automatically come on, so I'm going to keep this on, but I don't really use the histogram or the clipping that much, but it does come in handy. For today's demonstration, I'm going to keep them off. Bracketing is more for photos, so we're going to skip over that. We have photo settings here. We're going to skip that as well, but you can change the settings for photos. But we do want to focus on our video settings. Now the standard format here is H.264. I'm going to keep it here, but with the iPhone you also have high efficiency. Stabilization is great. I tend to keep it on, but I would suggest taking it off if you're going to use your gimbal. When it comes to frame rates, we have an option here, NTSC. This is what the majority of people will use, I'd say, at least in America, 24 frames per second, 48 frames per second. However, the PAL will give you 25 and 50 frames per second as options. Bitrate. Bitrate is an interesting subject. We have a standard, which means whatever your phone will produce. We have a medium at 60 megabytes per second and a high at 100 megabytes per second. However, in my experience, it doesn't make a big difference. Now this is up for debate, but check out my link in the description where I can compare using Filmic Pro, another app, the 4 different levels of bitrate that app offers. And you don't really see much of a difference, if at all. RGB histogram, this can come in handy. Your waveform, that can come in handy. Again, I'll put a link in the description that will go into details about these particular options. Your audio settings here, audio levels on. That way you can see how your volume, if it's a little too high or a little too low within the app itself. Sample rate, you have your 2 options, 44.1 and 48. We'll go with 48. Bit depth, 2 choices, going with the higher. Recording, you have a choice in stereo or mono. Let's go stereo, of course. Built-in mic, now this will depend on your phone. I have an iPhone 11 Pro. I have 3 built-in microphones. Usually the back one is what's most commonly or least default. And Bluetooth mic, if you have a Bluetooth microphone, there you go. Now, what's interesting here is Moment not only makes this app, they have some fantastic lenses. I have one in particular, the macro lens, and it's pretty nifty. If you happen to own or you plan on buying one of their several lenses, you can adapt this application to fit that particular lens. And down at the very bottom, we have more information where you can look at Moment's blogs, Moment's websites for more information. And here we can check our app version, and we can clear our cache by clicking here. Well, that was pretty easy. All right, let's get out of settings. Now, we also have presets. This is kind of nifty as well. If we click on presets, you have the option of using some presets that are already here for you for cinematic video, hyperlapses or time lapses, slow motion, and bulb light trails. Now, the last one, bulb light trails, is more for photos, but not only do you have these presets here ready and available for you, you can set your own. That's kind of nice. Now, as we go over a little to the left, we have this other control bar here. You have several options. Starting at the bottom, we have our shutter speed. You can control the shutter speed here. As you do it, you see this little line at the bottom. That means it's locked. If you want to get out of that and let it automatically adjust, you can just double tap. Right above that is our ISO. You can do the same thing, control ISO. In manual control, you're going to have better control by adjusting the ISO and the shutter speed. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can go up to this third option here, which is your exposure. You can do one or the other. You either adjust the 2 at the bottom, the ISO and the shutter speed, or lock the exposure here, which is going to adjust automatically the other 2. So one or the other. Double click to get out and let it automatically adjust. We have autofocus. Now with autofocus, remember I have focus peaking on now. And as we move it, you can sort of see the green lines in the image tell you where the focus is. I'll leave it right about there. Perfect focus. And then we have our automatic white balance. If you want to lock your white balance, what you're going to need to do is adjust it here to get what white balance you want. And then it'll automatically lock. If you want to get out of that, again, just double tap and automatic white balance is back. Now here at the top, these are your lenses. I have the iPhone 11 Pro. I have essentially 4 lenses. I have my selfie, which is right here, but I have my 3 other lenses, which are my wide angle, which we're in now, my ultra wide angle, and my telelens. We'll go back to wide angle. Now let's take a look here on the left side. This control bar here that we can scroll. Right here we have a few things to look at. Of course, the first one is flash. Who uses it really? Then we have our color profile. We have 3 options: default, flat, and log. You're going to enjoy having the option for flat and log if you want to adjust colors in post, if you want to color correct and color grade. We have a resolution, 3 options here: 720, 1080p and 4K. Most people say let's just go with 4K because it's higher, but there isn't that big of a difference. It's arguable, it depends on what you're doing, but I like to record in 4K because I just have more options with it. And frames per second. We're currently filming in 30 frames per second, but you have the option of 24, 30, 48, 60, and if you go to 1080p, if you get out of 4K, we go to 1080p, we go back to frames per second, we're going to see more options, 120 and 240, which essentially are for slow motion. And this little circle here at the top, these are the lenses that I was talking about. You have a whole range of options if you buy any of the Moment lenses. They're pretty cool. I suggest going to the website and seeing what they have. But if you don't have a lens, just like I don't at the moment, just click the bottom circle and you're back to normal. So that's what you'll see in the Moment app. It's pretty straightforward, nice design.
But wait, there's more. For a few bucks extra, you can unlock the time-lapse function for time lapses and buttery smooth hyperlapses. Once you've bought the app, you have the option to purchase Moment's Pro bundle and get a few extra features. And in my opinion, it's worth it. What's fantastic about Moment's time-lapse function is you can add motion blur and light trails to your video. This gives it a real pro feel and quality look that other apps don't have. This is one of my favorite features on this app, and I may make a future video dedicated to time lapses and hyperlapses sometime soon. Also, if you'd like to check out a few other video app options, check out this video right here comparing two of the other industry leaders.